step into the timeless world of ancient Egypt, where the sun sets over golden sands and the pyramids stand in serene silence. In this gentle journey, we'll wander through bustling marketplaces, sacred temples, and the shadowed corridors of royal tombs, uncovering stories of pharaohs, priests, and the people who built one of history's most enduring civilizations. Stay with us as we explore the mysteries of monumental architecture, the rhythms of daily life along the Nile, and the quiet rituals that shaped Egyptian culture. Keep watching to discover how ancient Egypt comes alive after nightfall in ways both historical and hauntingly beautiful. And when the story concludes, like, subscribe, and share your reflections in the comments so others can experience ancient Egypt's quiet magic with you. The sun had long begun its descent, painting the skies over the Nile with shades of amber and rose. Along the riverbanks, life unfolded in a rhythm that had persisted for millennia, carried by the flow of the great river itself. Farmers moved through the fields, their sandals sinking slightly into the rich, dark soil, water dripping from carefully tended canals as they guided irrigation to nourish the crops. Papyrus stalks swayed gently in the evening breeze, whispering secrets to the low-hanging clouds above. In the villages lining the Nile, families prepared for the quiet hours ahead. Children played among the reeds, their laughter mingling with the calls of birds returning to roost. Women wove baskets or prepared meals over small fires, their movements precise and measured, refined by generations of practice. Pottery and clay vessels were shaped with care, destined to hold grain, water, or oil. The river's gentle current carried a soft reflection of the setting sun, gilding the waters and bathing the villages in a warm, serene glow. Merchants prepared their stalls in the bustling marketplaces, arranging goods with an eye for beauty and balance. Brightly dyed linens, fragrant oils, and carved wooden figurines were displayed to catch the attention of buyers. Traders from distant lands arrived along the Nile, their boats laden with exotic goods, spices, incense, metals, and rare stones. The Nile served as the lifeblood of commerce, a quiet conveyor of culture and exchange that connected cities, villages, and civilizations over hundreds of miles. Even in these ordinary moments, there was a sense of reverence for the river. The Nile's annual flood dictated the agricultural calendar, shaping the very survival of communities. Farmers marked the levels of water with simple tools and careful observation, knowing that a gentle rise would nourish fields and sustain families, while excessive floods could bring devastation. Life depended on harmony with the river, a delicate balance between human labor and natural rhythm. Alongside agriculture, craftsmen worked tirelessly, their skills refined over generations. Stone carvers etched intricate symbols and designs into walls, columns, and statues, capturing stories of gods, kings, and everyday life. Weavers transformed flax into textiles, their hands moving in synchronized precision, patterns emerging from repeated motions that had been taught and passed down for centuries. Every action, from tending crops to crafting tools, reflected a careful attention to detail, a meditation on continuity and purpose. The evenings brought a gentle transformation. Fires flickered in homes and workshops, casting long shadows across walls adorned with painted scenes of life, offerings, and ritual. The soft glow illuminated faces concentrated on work or conversation, and the air was filled with the mingling aromas of bread baking, incense burning, and the rich fragrance of the river's nearby flora. Villagers gathered to share stories, recounting events of the day or retelling ancient tales passed down through oral tradition. These narratives preserved memory, culture, and wisdom, connecting each generation to those that had come before. Night markets took on a different character. Lamps of oil were lit,
illuminating stalls with warm, flickering light. Merchants sold not only necessities, but items of delight, scented oils, woven fabrics, jewelry, and small charms for protection or luck. Music accompanied the scene. The plucking of lyres, the soft percussion of drums, and the occasional song echoing from a courtyard. Sounds blended with the gentle rustle of reeds and the steady flow of the river, creating a quiet symphony that defined life along the Nile.
Even as activity continued, there was an ever-present awareness of the divine. Temples rose in the distance, their massive columns and statues outlined against the darkening sky. Priests moved with measured steps, preparing rituals to honor gods and goddesses who were believed to guide the river, the harvest, and the cycles of life and death. In homes, small altars held figurines, oils, and offerings, a quiet testament to the intimate connection between ordinary people and the divine. Belief was woven into the fabric of daily life, silent yet omnipresent, shaping choices, actions, and interactions. Children learned from observation, absorbing not only skills, but the rhythm of existence along the Nile. They watched the motions of farmers planting and harvesting, listened to stories of gods and heroes, and gradually understood their place within the community. Education was both formal and informal, a combination of apprenticeship, storytelling, and participation in daily routines. By evening, when work slowed, families gathered to recount tales of pharaohs, the exploits of gods, or lessons hidden in the rhythms of nature. In these quiet moments, knowledge passed gently from one generation to the next. The river itself seemed to embody the flow of time. Its waters mirrored the sunset in shifting shades of gold and crimson, carrying reflections of the villages, boats, and temples along its banks. Nightfall softened the edges of the landscape, blurring the boundaries between earth and sky, reality and legend. It was easy to imagine the spirits of ancestors drifting alongside the current, observing and guiding, their presence felt but unseen. Life along the Nile was both tangible and transcendent, grounded in daily labor, yet intertwined with the eternal. As darkness deepened, the villages quieted. Fires smoldered low, and only the occasional sound, the call of an owl, the splash of a fish, or the distant song of a traveler on the river, punctuated the stillness. Boats drifted silently along the water, guided by the current and occasional gentle paddles. Farmers rested from the day's toil. Artisans put down their tools, and merchants secured their goods. The Nile continued its patient journey, as it had for thousands of years, carrying life, memory, and stories toward horizons unseen. Under the starlit sky, the scale of Egyptian life became both intimate and grand. From the smallest actions, the careful tending of crops, the shaping of clay, the offering of incense, to the grand architectural feats that would one day define civilization, the rhythm of human existence was a quiet echo of eternity. The interplay between people, river, and land formed a delicate balance, a network of relationships and responsibilities that sustained communities across generations. Evening prayers reflected gratitude, hope, and reflection. Families offered small tokens to gods and ancestors, seeking guidance, protection, or blessings for the days to come. These moments, quiet and personal, were part of a larger tapestry, the spiritual and cultural continuity that linked ordinary villagers with the grand ambitions of pharaohs and the mysteries of the cosmos. Life and belief were inseparable, flowing together like the waters of the Nile, steady and enduring. In marketplaces and homes alike, artisans finished their work under lamplight.
Potters carefully shaped the final forms of vessels, scribes completed records and letters, and musicians strummed soft melodies that filled the evening air. Every act, no matter how small, contributed to the continuity of civilization, an unbroken chain connecting present to past and past to future. The quiet diligence of daily life carried the weight of culture, history, and legacy. Boats on the Nile carried travelers and goods, moving slowly through the calm night. Merchants returning from distant cities shared stories of trade, politics, and discoveries. The river was both a highway and a storyteller, connecting communities and generations. Along its banks, the lights of homes and small fires reflected in the water, creating a mosaic of human presence that glimmered beneath the moon.
As night deepened along the Nile, the villages transformed into quiet centers of reflection and ritual. Fires burned low in homes and courtyards, casting flickering shadows on walls adorned with painted scenes of harvests, offerings, and deities. The scents of bread, incense, and baked clay filled the air, mingling with the cool desert breeze. Families gathered in humble homes to recount stories from earlier in the day, exchanging memories, songs, and lessons, weaving together threads of history and culture that had persisted for generations. Temples, perched along riverbanks or atop gentle rises, became focal points of sacred activity. Priests moved with measured steps, their robes flowing, voices soft but deliberate, as they performed rituals designed to honor gods and maintain cosmic balance. The Nile's presence was a silent accompaniment, reflecting torchlight and ripples across its surface as the ritual chants carried across the water. Offerings of grain, oil, and wine were placed on altars with care, each gesture an act of devotion, precision, and connection to the divine. Villagers who could not enter the grand temples observed smaller, intimate acts of faith in their homes. Small altars displayed figurines of gods, bowls of water, and incense sticks, each element symbolizing protection, prosperity, and harmony. Even in simple settings, belief was tangible. Children watched elders light lamps and say prayers, absorbing the rhythms of devotion and the understanding that life was guided by both human effort and divine oversight. Night markets hummed with quiet energy. Oil lamps illuminated stalls lined with baskets of goods, woven fabrics dyed with brilliant colors, pottery etched with intricate designs, jewelry fashioned from gold and semi-precious stones. Traders and artisans conversed softly with patrons, negotiating, sharing news from distant cities, and exchanging advice. Music, the soft plucking of a lyre, the gentle beat of small drums, punctuated the air, creating an atmosphere both lively and intimate, a delicate blend of commerce and culture under the stars. Along the Nile, boats drifted silently. Some carried returning merchants and their wares, others ferried travelers who had journeyed from distant towns. The river was both a highway and a storyteller, reflecting the movements of people, the flow of goods, and the patterns of life that had persisted for centuries. Moonlight shimmered across the water, highlighting ripples and casting elongated shadows of oars and sails. The river's steady rhythm reminded villagers of the continuity of existence and the gentle pulse of civilization. Craftsmen and artisans continued their work late into the evening. Potters shaped vessels by lamplight, ensuring every curve was precise, every surface smooth. Weavers added final touches to textiles, their hands moving in practiced patterns learned over generations. Stone carvers and sculptors etched symbols and reliefs with care, capturing stories of gods, rulers, and everyday life. Even as night fell, the dedication to craft remained a testament to continuity, diligence, and reverence for both beauty and function. The stars emerged gradually, revealing constellations that guided navigation, agricultural planning, and religious observance.
Egyptians studied the sky with careful attention, noting the rising and setting of stars to mark seasons and rituals. Astronomy was intertwined with myth. Constellations represented gods, animals, and legendary events. Observing the heavens was both practical and poetic, linking the rhythms of life on earth with the eternal patterns above. Evening rituals in homes and temples reflected an understanding of balance, harmony, and cosmic order. Offerings were made to ensure the river's fertility, the sun's journey, and the prosperity of the land. Music, prayer, and symbolic gestures reinforced connection to the divine, embedding spirituality in the daily rhythms of life. Villagers learned these practices from observation and participation, absorbing the nuances of belief as seamlessly as they learned to plant crops, weave textiles, or shape clay. Families and neighbors gathered quietly to share knowledge and stories. Elders recounted the deeds of pharaohs, the exploits of gods, and the origins of natural phenomena. Stories blended fact and legend, offering lessons in morality, courage, and resourcefulness. Each story reinforced cultural values, creating a web of memory and wisdom that strengthened communal bonds. Listening, observing, and retelling became a shared responsibility, ensuring the preservation of knowledge across generations.
The riverbanks themselves held a sense of calm reverence. Reeds swayed gently in the evening breeze, their movement a subtle counterpoint to human activity. Birds roosted silently, and occasional sounds of nocturnal creatures punctuated the air. The Nile reflected the subtle hues of the moon and stars, creating a luminous path that guided both travelers and observers. The river was more than water. It was a living chronicle of life, carrying the echoes of history in every current and ripple. Trade continued subtly under moonlight. Some merchants traveled from distant lands, their goods unusual or rare, while others sought local products for exchange. Conversations were hushed, agreements formalized with gestures, tokens, or written records on papyrus. Commerce was both practical and social, a way to sustain livelihood, share knowledge, and build relationships. Even in quiet transactions, the pulse of civilization was palpable. Temples became more active as ceremonies progressed into the night. Priests and priestesses chanted in unison, the sound resonating through stone corridors and open courtyards. Torchlight flickered against massive columns adorned with hieroglyphs, illuminating depictions of gods, mythical creatures, and past rulers. Rituals reflected cosmic principles, life, death, renewal, and harmony with natural cycles. Observers, both lay and sacred, experienced a sense of continuity, understanding that human life was part of a larger, enduring order. Astronomy guided timing for these sacred activities. The heliacal rising of certain stars marked festivals, planting schedules, and religious observances. Observers noted positions of planets and constellations to align temples, tombs, and monuments with celestial rhythms. The stars were silent guides, offering a cosmic structure within which human life and activity unfolded. Night was both a practical and spiritual canvas, a space where humans could align their actions with the eternal cycles above. Artisans continued to refine creations that reflected both beauty and meaning. Jewelry inlaid with gold and precious stones captured symbolic representations of protection, fertility, and status. Textiles displayed intricate geometric and symbolic patterns, telling stories through colors and weave. Even the smallest handcrafted item contained layers of cultural significance, connecting human labor with belief, history, and aesthetic purpose. Children observed quietly, absorbing lessons through participation and observation. They learned to navigate social hierarchies, practice craft skills, and understand religious customs. Education was embedded in life itself. Observing farmers, merchants, artisans, and priests provided knowledge as effectively as direct instruction. Storytelling, ritual, and hands-on experience combined to create a holistic understanding of the world and one's place within it. The night was punctuated by the sounds of water against boats, the rustle of reeds, and the distant song of nocturnal creatures. Fires smoldered, and occasional conversations continued in quiet tones. Villagers rested in homes, while a few travelers or night workers moved along the river or streets. Life at night mirrored the balance of day. Work, reflection, and ritual intertwined seamlessly, maintaining the rhythms that had persisted for generations. Temples and monuments reflected the scale and ambition of Egyptian civilization. Even under the moonlight, their size and precision inspired awe. Massive stones fitted together with exacting care, hieroglyphs and reliefs etched with meticulous detail, and statues of gods and rulers stood sentinel over the land. These monuments served as reminders of power, belief, and human ingenuity, grounding everyday life in a broader narrative of civilization. Even as the night deepened, the connection between humans, the Nile, and the cosmos remained palpable. Rituals, trade, craft, and storytelling all reflected an awareness of continuity, balance, and the cyclical nature of life. Each action, from offering incense to crafting a pot, carried a silent acknowledgement of the unseen forces guiding existence. The Nile, ever flowing, remained the unifying thread, connecting villages, temples, and cities across time and space. Families and communities rested, boats drifted along the river, and temples quieted after ceremonies. The sounds of daily life gave way to softer, reflective tones, whispers of wind through reeds, distant animal calls, and the constant, gentle flow of water. The world felt both intimate and vast, grounded in human presence, yet connected to enduring natural and cosmic rhythms. Even in silence, stories persisted. Tales of gods, rulers, and everyday life echoed in homes and hearts, passed from one generation to the next. Life along the Nile was a living narrative, a careful balance between labor, devotion, creativity, and reflection. Each action, each observation, and each ritual contributed to the ongoing story of a civilization that had endured for millennia.
As darkness deepened over the Nile, the temples of ancient Egypt took on a presence both majestic and serene. Towering columns and massive stone facades, carved with hieroglyphs and depictions of deities, reflected the soft glow of oil lamps and torchlight. The monuments stood as silent witnesses to the devotion of generations, their scale and precision a testament to the meticulous care of architects, artisans, and priests. Each temple was not merely a building, but a living embodiment of the connection between humans and the divine. Inside these sacred spaces, priests moved with deliberate grace, their robes flowing and sandals whispering against the polished stone floors. Rituals followed precise patterns, choreographed to align with cosmic cycles and seasonal rhythms. Offerings of grain, oil, wine, and incense were prepared with reverence, each item selected for its symbolic and practical significance. Chants and hymns resonated through grand halls, their cadence reflecting the ordered universe that the Egyptians believed existed both above and below. The Nile itself played a central role in religious practice. Its predictable flooding, the source of life and sustenance, was seen as a divine gift, a tangible reflection of the god's favor. Ceremonies often began with water collected from the river, poured in libations or used to purify sacred spaces. Priests monitored the river closely, interpreting its ebb and flow as signs, omens, and guidance for the community. In this quiet observation, the rhythm of life and the pulse of spirituality intertwined seamlessly. Even outside the grand temples, households maintained intimate acts of devotion. Small altars in homes displayed figurines of gods, bowls of water, and offerings of food and incense. Children watched and learned, absorbing the rhythms of daily worship and the significance of each gesture. The act of lighting a lamp, presenting a libation, or reciting a simple prayer became an integral part of living, embedding spiritual awareness into the very fabric of existence. Priests not only performed rituals, but also served as custodians of knowledge. They recorded astronomical observations, maintained calendars, and documented the cycles of the Nile. Their knowledge guided agricultural planning, festival timing, and civic administration. Education in sacred knowledge was passed from senior priests to apprentices, preserving centuries of wisdom and maintaining continuity across generations. The temple thus functioned as a hub of spirituality, scholarship, and societal order. Ceremonies often began in the evening, coinciding with the transition of stars and the appearance of key constellations. The rising of certain stars marked agricultural milestones, religious festivals, and important civic dates. Observing the night sky was both a practical and spiritual endeavor. It ensured the smooth functioning of society while reinforcing the connection between human life and the cosmos. The Egyptians believed that aligning human activity with celestial rhythms maintained balance, ma'at, in both the mortal and divine realms. Music played a subtle yet significant role in temple life. Lyres, harps, flutes, and small percussion instruments accompanied chants and hymns, creating an auditory tapestry that resonated throughout halls and courtyards. The sound of music mingled with the scent of incense and the flicker of torchlight, immersing participants in a sensory experience that reinforced devotion and focus. Even the quietest movements, the turning of a page of papyrus, the lighting of a lamp, the gentle bowing of a priest, became an integral part of living, embedding spiritual awareness into the very fabric of existence. Through these interactions, the community absorbed knowledge, reinforced cultural values, and deepened its connection to both the gods and the natural world. Festivals punctuated the calendar with periods of heightened devotion. During these times, rituals expanded, processions moved along riverbanks, and music and dance became more pronounced. The city itself seemed to breathe in harmony with divine rhythms. Evenings during festivals were filled with collective energy, yet maintained a sense of reverence and awe. Lights from lamps and torches reflected in the Nile, illuminating faces, statues, and temples with a soft, flickering glow. The integration of astronomy into religious practice was profound. Temples were aligned with solstices, equinoxes, and prominent stars. Observations of the heavens guided the timing of planting, harvesting, and festival activities. Priests recorded the movement of celestial bodies on papyrus, creating calendars that coordinated civic, religious, and agricultural life. Night became both a time of reflection and careful observation, a period in which humans attuned themselves to the rhythms of the universe. The interplay between ritual and daily life extended to social and political structures. Pharaohs, considered divine or semi-divine, relied on priests to maintain religious order and interpret the will of the gods. Civic decisions, construction projects, and agricultural policies were influenced by divine guidance, interpreted through ritual, observation, and consultation. Society operated as an interconnected web, where spirituality, governance, and everyday practice reinforced one another, creating stability and cohesion. Even in the quiet hours, learning and apprenticeship continued. Young scribes practiced writing hieroglyphs, copying sacred texts, and recording observations. They observed priests perform rituals, noting gestures, chants, and procedures with care. Children of artisans and merchants watched, absorbing practical skills and spiritual lessons simultaneously. Education was holistic, experiential, and continuous, blending hands-on activity with observation and reflection. In homes, evening routines intertwined with spiritual practice. Families offered small portions of food, wine, or bread to household gods. Lamps were lit to illuminate altars, and incense burned to purify the space. These intimate rituals mirrored the grand ceremonies in temples, demonstrating the accessibility of devotion and the integration of spirituality into daily life. Every action, from the mundane to the ceremonial, reflected a consciousness of order, balance, and cosmic harmony. The city streets at night reflected a balance of activity and quiet. Some artisans worked late, finishing commissions or preparing materials for the next day. Traders closed stalls and secured goods, while others traveled along cobbled paths or riverbanks to complete errands or visit distant homes. Animals, cats, dogs, and livestock moved softly in the shadows, contributing to the nocturnal rhythm without disturbing it. Life in the city was structured yet fluid, a reflection of continuity, planning, and cultural cohesion. Music and storytelling continued in intimate settings. Families shared tales of gods, heroes, and legendary deeds, preserving history and cultural values. The cadence of speech, tone of voice, and gestures all contributed to memory and understanding. Through repetition and participation, children internalized lessons of morality, resilience, and the connection between the mortal and divine. The art of storytelling itself became a sacred practice, linking generations and anchoring identity in a rich cultural tapestry. Nighttime also offered moments of quiet observation. Residents watched the moon rise over temples, pyramids, and riverbanks. Stars emerged, revealing constellations used for navigation, ritual, and reflection. The vast sky reminded humans of their place in the universe, the scale of time, and the enduring cycles that governed both earthly and divine life. Silence became a teacher, emphasizing patience, awareness, and humility in the face of eternity. Temples and public spaces often contained small libraries or archives. Priests and scribes maintained records of rituals, astronomical observations, agricultural data, and civic decrees. These documents preserved knowledge for future generations, ensuring continuity across time. Even during quiet evenings, these spaces were places of learning, reflection, and preparation, bridging human activity with the eternal flow of knowledge. The night along the Nile was a living mosaic of activity, ritual, reflection, and observation. From the smallest home altar to the grandest temple, every element contributed to a broader rhythm. Life unfolded in harmony with natural cycles, spiritual principles, and social structures. The interplay of humans, river, sky, and divine presence created a network of meaning, continuity, and beauty that persisted through centuries. As fires burned low and the moon illuminated quiet streets and riverbanks, the community settled into rest. Boats drifted gently on the Nile. Houses were secured, and temples quieted after evening ceremonies. Yet the rhythm of life continued, subtle and unbroken,
guided by the cycles of nature, devotion, and human ingenuity. Every stone, every gesture, and every reflection carried forward the legacy of civilization, linking past, present, and future.
As night deepened, the temples of ancient Egypt transformed into sanctuaries of shadow and light, each corner alive with the rhythm of ritual and devotion. Torchlight flickered against towering columns, casting dancing silhouettes that seemed to breathe life into the stone walls. Hieroglyphs etched centuries before glowed softly in the warm illumination, telling stories of gods, kings, and the cycles of nature. Every surface, every carving seemed to pulse with a quiet, enduring energy, a testament to the meticulous devotion of generations of priests and artisans. The high priest led processions through the courtyards, robes flowing, sandals silent against polished stone. Chants resonated, rising in patterns that mirrored the movement of stars above. Every word, every gesture was measured to align with cosmic order, to honor Ma'at, the balance that governed the universe. Assistants carried offerings of grain, oil, wine, and fragrant herbs, each chosen for its symbolic meaning and arranged with precision. The temple itself became a living organism, its rhythm synchronized with both human intention and the silent pulse of the universe. Observers from the city gathered at the edges of the temple precincts. Some came out of devotion, others to witness the grandeur and solemnity of ceremonies beyond the reach of daily life. Children watched wide-eyed as priests manipulated sacred objects, performed purifications, and recited incantations that resonated in the cool night air. These gatherings were not merely performances, they were immersive experiences that reinforced cultural memory, social cohesion, and spiritual awareness. Music, though subtle, suffused the temple with an invisible current of emotion and focus. Lyres plucked in measured sequences, flutes breathed soft tones, and small drums marked the tempo of ritual. The interplay of sound and silence guided both participants and observers, creating a sense of flow that connected physical action with spiritual intent. Even a quiet shift of a foot or the turning of a scroll contributed to this symphony, as though every motion was a note in the eternal music of devotion. The Nile's presence continued to dominate consciousness, even within the sacred precincts. Water drawn from the Nile was used in purification rituals, its gentle flow symbolizing life, renewal, and divine favor. Priests interpreted variations in the river's behavior as omens or guidance, incorporating them into ceremonies. The river was both literal and symbolic, a source of sustenance, a conduit of trade, and a living manifestation of the god's will. Its influence shaped every ritual, every prayer, and every act of devotion performed along its banks. Astronomical observation was central to nighttime rituals. Priests studied the stars, noting the positions of prominent constellations and planets. The heliacal rising of certain stars marked sacred festivals, agricultural cycles, and ceremonial timing. The sky was a map, a guide, and a mirror of earthly order. Observers understood that aligning human activity with celestial patterns maintained balance, linking the ephemeral actions of individuals with the eternal rhythms of the cosmos. Festivals were times of collective energy and heightened devotion. Streets and riverbanks filled with participants carrying offerings, singing, and moving in processions that mimicked the journeys of gods. Even at night, torches illuminated the path, reflecting in the waters of the Nile and casting ephemeral patterns across stone walls and monuments. Music and dance intertwined with ritual, creating layers of experience that engaged every sense, yet always maintained reverence. The night became both a stage and a sacred space, where human creativity and divine order converged. Artisans played a vital role in supporting the spiritual life of the community. Stone carvers, metalworkers, and scribes labored to create tools, statues, inscriptions, and ceremonial objects. Each creation was both functional and symbolic, designed to honor the gods and facilitate ritual.
The precision of their work reflected a deep understanding that physical forms carried spiritual weight, and that beauty and devotion were inseparable. Even late at night, workshops hummed softly with activity, echoing the larger rhythm of life and ritual. Education and apprenticeship continued quietly alongside ritual activity. Young scribes practiced hieroglyphs on prepared papyrus, copying sacred texts that contained both instruction and wisdom. Apprentices to artisans observed the crafting of ceremonial objects, absorbing both technical skill and the underlying spiritual significance of their labor. Knowledge was transmitted through participation, observation, and repetition, ensuring continuity of practice, belief, and culture across generations.
Stories of gods and heroes interwove seamlessly with ritual. Priests recounted myths that explained the origins of natural phenomena, the behavior of celestial bodies, and the moral principles guiding human conduct. Deities were not distant abstractions, they were active participants in the world, guiding farmers, merchants, rulers, and common citizens alike. These narratives reinforced social cohesion, ethical behavior, and the cultural memory that defined the civilization. The temple precincts often included quiet spaces for meditation and reflection. Courtyards with reflecting pools, shaded colonnades, and small altars provided areas where individuals could contemplate their place in the cosmos. Observing the stars mirrored on the water, listening to distant chants, and breathing in the sense of incense encouraged introspection. Even in the midst of communal activity, there were moments of solitude, a recognition that spiritual life required both participation and reflection. Nighttime also brought attention to cycles of life and death. Burial practices and funerary rituals were intricately linked to belief systems that spanned millennia. Tombs were prepared with offerings, inscriptions, and images that guided the deceased into the afterlife. Priests performed ceremonies to ensure safe passage, drawing on centuries of knowledge and tradition. Families participated through small acts of devotion, ensuring continuity of care, respect, and memory. Life and death were integrated into the spiritual and physical landscapes, creating a holistic understanding of existence. The connection between humans and the cosmos was evident not only in ritual, but also in the very layout of cities and temples. Streets, avenues, and monuments were aligned with celestial phenomena, reflecting a sophisticated understanding of astronomy and geometry. The careful placement of structures ensured harmony with natural forces, facilitated rituals, and symbolically connected earthly life with divine order. Nighttime observation reinforced these alignments, as shadows, moonlight, and stars revealed patterns not always visible during the day. The quiet activity along riverbanks included small gatherings of neighbors and families sharing food, songs, and stories. Conversations were soft, punctuated by laughter or the gentle splash of a paddle against water. Community bonds were strengthened through shared participation in rituals, festivals, and daily tasks. Even simple actions, lighting a lamp, offering a small libation, or passing a tool to a neighbor, became expressions of connection, mindfulness, and cultural continuity. Astronomical phenomena continued to inspire awe. The appearance of Venus as the morning or evening star was noted with reverence, marking agricultural cycles and festival timing. The path of the moon influenced ceremonies, guiding the rhythm of offerings and prayers. Each observation strengthened the sense that human life, though fleeting, was intimately tied to eternal patterns. The night sky provided both guidance and contemplation, a bridge between tangible existence and cosmic order. In quieter corners of the city, scholars and scribes worked late into the evening. Scrolls were copied, astronomical tables recorded, and historical events documented. Libraries and archives became centers of knowledge preservation, ensuring that wisdom survived beyond individual lifetimes. Night was a time for reflection, study, and meticulous work, allowing the continuity of culture to persist in both sacred and practical realms. As the night wore on, the interplay of sound, scent, and sight created a sensory tapestry that defined life along the Nile. The gentle flow of water, the flicker of torchlight, the rhythmic chant of priests, and the distant hum of city activity blended into a cohesive, immersive experience. Every sense was engaged, yet always within a framework of calm, reverence, and attentiveness. The environment itself became a teacher, reinforcing awareness of balance, timing, and connection to both human and divine. Through observation, participation, and reflection, individuals internalized lessons of harmony, morality, and purpose. Children and apprentices learned not through rote instruction alone, but through engagement with the rhythms of life, ritual, and observation of skilled elders. Spiritual, practical, and artistic knowledge intertwined seamlessly, forming a holistic approach to living that encompassed body, mind, and soul. The river remained central throughout. Even at night, it carried water, goods, and stories, connecting villages, temples, and cities across distances. Its gentle current reflected the moon and stars, creating a luminous pathway that guided travelers, illuminated temples, and mirrored human activity. The Nile was both physical sustenance and spiritual anchor, a constant reminder of continuity, generosity, and the interdependence of life and divinity. As the dawn approached, night slowly yielded to the first hints of sunlight. Priests concluded rituals, fires burned low, and boats drifted toward early morning destinations. The city settled into a quiet anticipation of a new day, yet the lessons, rituals, and stories of the night persisted. Knowledge, devotion, and culture had been reinforced. Continuity of life along the Nile remained unbroken. The night had been more than darkness. It had been a living canvas for devotion, learning, artistry, and reflection. Every flame, every gesture, every sound contributed to the ongoing story of ancient Egypt, a civilization defined by the interplay of humans, gods, and the eternal rhythms of nature.
The night settled over the desert, and the grand silhouettes of pyramids emerged against the horizon, casting long shadows across the sands. These monumental structures, built with painstaking precision, reflected the ambition, vision, and devotion of the pharaohs who commissioned them. Each stone was placed with a purpose, every angle and alignment considered to honor the gods, mark the passage of time, and secure a legacy that would endure for eternity. Pharaohs were both rulers and divine intermediaries, figures whose presence commanded obedience and inspired reverence. They were seen as earthly embodiments of Ma'at, responsible for maintaining balance and order in both society and the cosmos. Even as ordinary people attended to their daily routines along the Nile, the shadow of the pharaoh's authority was ever present, guiding decisions, trade, agriculture, and ritual. Every monumental project, every decree, and every ceremonial act reflected the intertwined roles of governance, religion, and culture. The construction of pyramids demanded coordination, skill, and an understanding of both engineering and cosmology. Massive limestone blocks were quarried, transported, and positioned with remarkable precision, a labor-intensive process involving thousands of workers. Artisans carved reliefs, inscribed hieroglyphs, and shaped statues that adorned temples and tombs. The scale of effort reflected a society deeply committed to continuity, hierarchy, and reverence for both human achievement and the divine. Tombs were carefully designed to protect the deceased and provide for the journey into the afterlife. Chambers were stocked with food, clothing, tools, and treasures, ensuring that pharaohs and nobility could maintain their status beyond death.
Walls were adorned with murals depicting rituals, mythological narratives, and the daily lives of Egyptians, bridging the gap between the temporal and the eternal. The preparation of tombs was both practical and symbolic, a reflection of the belief that life extended beyond mortal existence. Obelisks rose as slender markers of devotion and power, their tips gleaming in torchlight or sunlight, pointing toward the heavens. They were both architectural marvels and spiritual instruments, aligning the earthly with the celestial. Hieroglyphs etched into their surfaces recounted the accomplishments of rulers, celebrated divine favor, and provided instructions for rituals. Standing beneath an obelisk, one could feel the weight of history, ambition, and the unseen presence of the gods that inspired every chiseling motion. The grandeur of palaces mirrored the ambition of pharaohs. Elaborate courtyards, decorated halls, and ornate living spaces demonstrated both wealth and skill. Artisans and architects employed every available resource to create spaces that were functional, beautiful, and symbolic. Gardens, pools, and ceremonial rooms reflected harmony with nature, celestial cycles, and spiritual principles. Palaces were centers of governance and ritual, blending administration with devotion in seamless continuity. Pharaohs also engaged in subtle displays of political and spiritual power. Ceremonies involved processions, offerings, and rituals designed to reinforce authority, inspire loyalty, and maintain divine favor. These events were both public and symbolic, communicating messages to citizens while ensuring cosmic harmony. Even at night, the preparation, observation, and reflection surrounding such ceremonies reinforced societal order and cultural cohesion. The labor force that built these monuments was vast and highly organized. Farmers, artisans, architects, and scribes contributed skills in rotation, often aligned with agricultural cycles. During the inundation season, when fields were submerged, workers were mobilized to quarry stone, transport materials, and execute construction. This orchestration of human effort reflected a society capable of both monumental achievements and careful stewardship of its people. Every element of monumental architecture was infused with meaning. Temples, tombs, and obelisks were aligned with stars, solstices, and cardinal directions. The placement of statues and reliefs corresponded to rituals, astronomical observations, and symbolic narratives. The Egyptians understood that architecture was a language, one that communicated with both the mortal and the divine realms, preserving memory and intention across generations. Inside tombs, artisans painted scenes of daily life and mythological journeys. Scribes meticulously inscribed spells, instructions, and prayers intended to guide the deceased. Objects placed within the tomb, jewelry, tools, vessels, were not mere possessions, but vessels of meaning, reflecting status, devotion, and preparation for eternity.
Pharaohs' lives were marked by ceremonial precision. From dawn until dusk, their days were governed by rituals, audiences, and governance. Religious duties were as important as administrative responsibilities, reinforcing the idea that divine favor was essential to societal prosperity. Even in sleep or quiet reflection, the pharaoh's presence symbolized continuity, guidance, and the unbroken chain linking past, present, and future. Monumental inscriptions captured narratives of victory, piety, and cosmological understanding. Reliefs on walls depicted battles, offerings, celestial events, and interactions with deities. Every carving conveyed layered meanings intended to educate, inspire, and preserve knowledge. Visitors, whether royalty, citizens, or travelers, could read these inscriptions as both historical record and spiritual guide, understanding the intertwined fates of humans and gods.
Nightfall offered moments of introspection for those who maintained or observed these structures. Scribes copied texts, priests reflected on celestial cycles, and artisans refined their work. Observing the stars, the river, and the illuminated monuments, individuals felt their connection to larger forces, societal, spiritual, and natural. The rhythm of labor, observation, and reflection reinforced awareness of continuity, duty, and cosmic alignment. Craftsmanship extended beyond stone and papyrus. Jewelry, textiles, and ceramics carried symbolic significance. Gold represented the flesh of gods. Lapis lazuli symbolized the heavens. Intricate patterns in fabrics reflected cosmic order. Artisans approached their work with reverence, understanding that each creation had both functional and spiritual dimensions. Objects were not mere possessions, they were vessels for cultural memory and devotion. The night sky served as both guide and inspiration. Stars marked the timing of ceremonies, agricultural tasks, and ritual observances. Celestial movements were mirrored in the layout of monuments, the positioning of obelisks, and the alignment of temples. Observers understood that earthly activity reflected celestial patterns, reinforcing harmony between human and divine, temporal and eternal. Even in moments of rest, the presence of monumental structures reminded individuals of ambition, continuity, and devotion. Families slept with awareness of the river, temples, and palaces nearby. Craftsmen paused their work with reverence for the tools, materials, and space they inhabited. The collective consciousness of the civilization, anchored in architecture, ritual, and observation, persisted quietly, shaping the rhythm of daily life and spiritual practice. Children, apprentices, and young scribes learned through immersion. Observing construction, ritual, and administration, they absorbed knowledge of engineering, astronomy, art, and spirituality. Oral traditions complemented practical instruction, reinforcing cultural values, social norms, and ethical principles. Education was continuous and experiential, ensuring that knowledge, skill, and devotion were passed seamlessly across generations. The Nile remained the constant thread linking monumental ambition with everyday life. Boats drifted silently along the river, carrying laborers, traders, and travelers. Reflections of torchlight, stars, and monuments shimmered in the water, merging human achievement with natural beauty. Observers could feel the pulse of civilization and the flow of time, anchored by the river that nourished life, trade, and spiritual practice alike. The night emphasized contrasts, monumental and intimate, sacred and practical, eternal and fleeting. Monuments inspired awe, domestic life nurtured continuity. Rituals reinforced cosmic balance, while trade and craft ensured societal survival. These dualities were not in conflict, but in harmony, a reflection of the Egyptian understanding of balance, order, and ma'at. As artisans continued refining their work, scribes recorded new events, and priests monitored the heavens, the night persisted as both backdrop and participant. Every activity, from monumental construction to personal devotion, reflected interdependence. Civilization was maintained through coordinated effort, shared belief, and acknowledgement of forces beyond the individual. Even in darkness, the pulse of life and culture remained steady and purposeful. The grandeur of monuments, the devotion of priests, and the diligence of artisans conveyed a narrative that transcended time. Each stone, inscription, and artifact was a chapter in an ongoing story of human ambition, spiritual pursuit, and societal cohesion. Observing, participating, or reflecting on these creations fostered awareness of mortality, legacy, and connection to the eternal. Even as night deepened and activity slowed, the city and river remained alive with subtle motion. Animals stirred, riverboats drifted, and fires flickered in homes and workshops. The interplay of light and shadow, sound and silence, activity and stillness created a rich sensory tapestry, a living expression of culture and continuity. Every movement, no matter how small, contributed to the rhythm of civilization and the enduring presence of monuments that told the story of ambition, devotion, and balance.
Night fell across the city, casting the palaces and courtyards of Egypt's elite into soft shadows. Lamps glimmered along corridors and open terraces, illuminating statues, intricate frescoes, and polished floors. Nobles and members of the royal household moved quietly, attending to evening rituals, preparing for rest, and observing the stars that guided both spiritual and practical life. The palace was a microcosm of Egyptian society. Order, devotion, and refinement, orchestrated carefully to reflect the cosmic balance of Ma'at. Evenings in the palace were moments of reflection and preparation. Pharaohs and high officials considered matters of governance, reviewing decrees and discussing the administration of cities, temples, and farmland. Scribes recorded decisions, preserving continuity and ensuring that the affairs of the state were meticulously documented. Despite the calm of night, the mechanisms of power and responsibility were quietly in motion, sustained by discipline, observation, and foresight. In private chambers, nobles attended to spiritual and cultural practices. Small altars adorned with statues of gods and offerings of incense and food were tended with devotion. Families recited prayers, lighting lamps to illuminate the sacred space. The act of devotion, even in the private sphere, reinforced the interconnectedness of human life with divine forces. Every gesture, every word, carried meaning, bridging the physical and spiritual realms. Tombs, prepared over decades, held the promise of eternal life. Artisans worked tirelessly to inscribe walls, carve statues, and arrange offerings that would accompany the deceased into the afterlife. Paintings depicted journeys through the duat, battles with chaos, and encounters with deities, guiding the soul toward a harmonious eternity. The tomb was a both sanctuary and narrative, a carefully constructed world that reflected beliefs, values, and ambitions. Priests performed rituals to consecrate tombs, using chants, incense, and sacred water to purify the space. Each action had significance: the alignment of statues, the placement of offerings, the recitation of spells, all ensured protection and guidance for the deceased. Observing these ceremonies, one could feel the depth of devotion, the precision of practice, and the profound understanding of life, death, and cosmic order that defined Egyptian civilization. The mysteries of mythology unfolded in quiet storytelling. Tales of gods, heroes, and creation narratives were recounted, teaching lessons about morality, responsibility, and the cycles of nature. Osiris's story, Isis and Horus, illustrated the interplay of death, rebirth, and divine justice. Ra's journey across the sky reminded observers of the eternal cycle of day and night, life and death. Myths were not mere entertainment. They were frameworks that shaped behavior, reinforced societal order, and connected humans to eternal forces. Nighttime also illuminated the quiet labor of artisans in palaces and tomb workshops. Goldsmiths refined jewelry for ceremonial use. Potters shaped vessels for offerings, and sculptors completed statues destined for temples or tombs.
Each piece, whether large or small, was imbued with both function and meaning. The precision and care reflected an understanding that objects could serve as vessels for devotion, memory, and legacy, preserving human presence across generations. Observing the stars was a ritual in itself. Pharaohs and priests noted constellations, the phases of the moon, and the positions of planets. Celestial patterns guided ceremonies, agricultural planning, and spiritual reflection. Astronomy was not separate from daily life. It was integrated into governance, ritual, and education. The night sky provided structure, reassurance, and inspiration, linking the fleeting human experience with the eternal cycles of the universe. In the quieter corners of the city, noble families hosted small gatherings. Music, soft conversation, and storytelling accompanied evening meals. Children learned social etiquette, cultural knowledge, and spiritual principles through observation and participation. These domestic spaces were laboratories of culture, nurturing continuity, moral understanding, and awareness of the interconnectedness of society, spirituality, and cosmic order. The nocturnal environment encouraged reflection on mortality and legacy. Tombs, obelisks, and monuments reminded citizens that life was transient, yet human effort could endure. Pharaohs' inscriptions detailed victories, offerings, and divine favor, preserving memory and demonstrating the interplay between human ambition and divine sanction. Even the simplest acts, arranging an offering, inscribing a name, or lighting a lamp, were imbued with awareness of permanence and impermanence. Funerary rituals were elaborate and exacting. Priests led processions from temples to tombs, carrying sacred objects, chants, and offerings. Participants moved with solemnity, reflecting both fear and reverence for the mysteries of death. Every gesture, every placement of an object, every incantation was carefully designed to ensure the safe passage of the soul. Observers understood that mortality was not an end, but a transformation, part of a cycle maintained by devotion, ritual, and knowledge. Obelisks and monuments cast long shadows under torchlight, their inscriptions recounting deeds and divine favor. Walking among these structures, individuals felt the weight of history and the presence of eternity. Every carved symbol, every measured alignment, and every architectural flourish reinforced the idea that human ambition, when aligned with cosmic and spiritual principles, could transcend time. The Nile remained central to nocturnal life. Reflections of moonlight and torchlight shimmered on its surface, guiding travelers, illuminating temples, and providing a sense of calm continuity. Boats carried goods, travelers, and ceremonial objects, their movements subtle yet vital to the rhythm of civilization. The river's flow mirrored the cycles of life, reinforcing both practical and spiritual awareness of the unbroken passage of time. The palace and temple grounds continued to hum with activity. Courtiers, guards, artisans, and priests engaged in quiet tasks, maintaining spaces, preparing for ceremonies, and observing celestial cues. Even in the absence of public spectacle, the mechanisms of government, devotion, and cultural continuity persisted. Every action, however small, contributed to the functioning of a civilization built on precision, hierarchy, and reverence. Children observed and absorbed these rhythms, learning through experience and storytelling. Apprentices practiced craft, scribes copied texts, and young nobles absorbed etiquette and cultural norms. Education was experiential and continuous, rooted in observation, participation, and reflection. Knowledge, skill, and spiritual understanding were transmitted across generations seamlessly, ensuring continuity of both cultural practice and societal order. Temples and tombs were designed to create harmony between human activity and cosmic patterns. Alignments with solstices, equinoxes, and cardinal points ensured that rituals corresponded with celestial events. Light and shadow, sound and silence, movement and stillness, all were orchestrated to reflect order and balance. The physical environment became a teacher, guiding human behavior, reinforcing devotion, and connecting the temporal with the eternal. In quieter streets, domestic life continued alongside monumental grandeur. Families tended small altars, shared meals, and recounted stories. Craftsmen completed work in workshops, and travelers moved along the riverbanks. Even in ordinary activities, the interplay of labor, devotion, and observation reinforced cultural cohesion. Every action carried symbolic weight, linking individual experience to the collective rhythm of civilization. Nighttime reflections emphasized mortality, legacy, and spiritual continuity. Observers considered the passage of time, the impermanence of life, and the enduring presence of monuments and rituals. Tombs, pyramids, and obelisks stood as reminders that while individual life was fleeting, human creativity, devotion, and knowledge could endure. This awareness guided behavior, reinforced social norms, and inspired ongoing dedication to craft, governance, and spiritual practice. Music and storytelling continued in private and public spheres. Chants, lyres, and flutes provided rhythm and ambiance, while stories conveyed cultural values, mythological knowledge, and moral lessons. Participation in these activities reinforced awareness of connection to family, community, ancestors, and gods. The night became a space for learning, reflection, and preparation, merging the practical with the spiritual, the intimate with the monumental. Even as the night approached its deepest hours, life persisted quietly along the Nile. Animals moved softly through homes and streets, water flowed in the river, and torchlight glimmered across courtyards and workshops. The rhythm of civilization was subtle but continuous, maintained through observation, ritual, labor, and reflection. The city, the river, and the monuments together formed an enduring symphony of human presence, cosmic alignment, and spiritual devotion. The grandeur of tombs and pyramids was mirrored by the care taken in everyday life. Offerings, rituals, and observations of celestial phenomena ensured that human action aligned with both divine expectation and natural cycles. Continuity of culture, skill, and devotion persisted through generations, embedded in both monumental and domestic spaces. The night was a vessel for learning, memory, and reflection, sustaining the civilization and guiding its people. In these quiet hours, the Egyptian understanding of life, death, and legacy became palpable. Monuments, rituals, and daily practice conveyed lessons about balance, devotion, and ambition. Observers and participants experienced the interconnection of human effort, divine order, and cosmic rhythm. Every action, from preparing an offering to observing the stars, contributed to a tapestry of civilization that would endure beyond individual lifetimes.
The night over Egypt's deserts revealed a landscape shaped by human ambition, devotion, and creativity. Monuments stood as silent witnesses to centuries of civilization, their shadows stretching across sands, riverbanks, and ancient pathways. Pyramids rose in geometric perfection. Tombs held centuries of carefully preserved knowledge, and temples reflected both artistic mastery and spiritual devotion. Even in silence, these structures communicated stories of achievement, vision, and continuity. Life along the Nile continued to unfold with grace and order. Farmers, artisans, scribes, and priests participated in routines that balanced daily needs with devotion, ritual, and education. The river remained the lifeblood of civilization, carrying goods, people, and stories, linking distant communities, and providing a constant reminder of the interdependence of life and environment. Observing the river, one could see how human effort harmonized with natural cycles, creating stability, prosperity, and cultural richness. Egyptian achievements extended beyond monumental architecture. Innovations in mathematics, astronomy, and engineering were embedded in daily life and sacred practice. Measurements for building pyramids required precise calculation, while the alignment of temples and tombs reflected careful observation of celestial cycles. Art, music, and literature flourished alongside practical knowledge, demonstrating an understanding that beauty, utility, and devotion could coexist harmoniously. The written word preserved the wisdom of generations. Hieroglyphs recorded history, law, ritual, and mythology, offering guidance for rulers, priests, and common citizens alike. Papyrus scrolls contained observations of stars, calendars for agriculture, and instructions for ceremonies. Knowledge was meticulously transmitted, ensuring that the insights of ancestors remained accessible to future generations. In quiet study rooms, scribes copied texts, maintaining continuity and precision, anchoring civilization in both memory and practice. Even the smallest objects reflected cultural and spiritual significance. Jewelry, pottery, and textiles carried symbolic meaning, linking the wearer or user to gods, natural forces, and social identity. Colors, materials, and patterns were selected with intention, embedding layers of significance into the objects of daily life. Craftsmanship was a form of devotion, merging practicality with beauty, memory, and cultural expression. Nighttime offered opportunities for reflection and observation. Citizens, both noble and common, looked to the stars to guide decisions, anticipate seasonal changes, and find inspiration. Astronomy was integrated into religious practice, agriculture, and civic life. The celestial patterns mirrored the order of society, reinforcing principles of balance, foresight, and harmony that underpin both practical governance and spiritual understanding. Temples remained central to the continuity of culture. Even after centuries, they were spaces of learning, ritual, and social coordination. Priests monitored celestial movements, performed ceremonies, and instructed apprentices. Courtyards and halls became classrooms and stages, blending education with devotion. Observing temple activity at night, one could see the seamless integration of knowledge, ritual, and community life. The legacy of pharaohs was preserved in both monumental and subtle ways. Inscriptions, statues, and tombs conveyed authority, ambition, and spiritual intent. Every stone, every relief, and every ceremonial object was a record of human endeavor, a testament to the fusion of vision, skill, and belief. Citizens absorbed these lessons continuously, internalizing principles of balance, reverence, and social order through both observation and participation. In domestic spaces, families contributed to continuity. Evening rituals, storytelling, and observation of the natural world nurtured awareness, morality, and cultural identity. Children learned by witnessing actions, hearing myths, and participating in daily practices. These intimate activities ensured that knowledge, values, and spiritual understanding were passed from generation to generation, preserving the essence of civilization beyond monumental structures. Monuments also reflected innovation in engineering and architectural design. Pyramids, tombs, and temples incorporated advanced techniques in weight distribution, stone cutting, and alignment.
Architects understood not only structural requirements, but also symbolic and spiritual significance, ensuring that buildings harmonized with both human activity and celestial phenomena. The precision and foresight embedded in construction reflected the Egyptians' holistic approach to life, blending art, science, and devotion.
The influence of Egyptian civilization extended beyond its borders. Trade, diplomacy, and cultural exchange carried innovations, knowledge, and artistic styles to neighboring regions. Egyptian expertise in metallurgy, agriculture, and mathematics became foundational for subsequent civilizations. Even at night, when the city rested, the ripples of Egyptian innovation and culture extended across continents, influencing societies near and far. The interplay of light and shadow at night revealed architectural mastery. Columns, statues, and reliefs transformed under torchlight and moonlight, their forms shifting with perspective. These moments of quiet observation offered both aesthetic pleasure and spiritual reflection. Observers considered the dedication required to achieve such harmony and precision, gaining insight into the values, discipline, and vision of those who shaped the civilization. Astronomical knowledge guided both spiritual and practical life. Star charts, lunar observations, and celestial alignments informed temple rituals, agricultural cycles, and civic planning. The night sky was a map, a calendar, and a teacher. Observers understood that aligning human activity with cosmic patterns ensured balance, prosperity, and divine favor. This awareness permeated both monumental projects and everyday routines, connecting human endeavor with eternal rhythms. Even in ordinary domestic life, spiritual and cultural continuity persisted. Families offered libations, recited prayers, and shared stories that reinforced memory, morality, and social norms. Music, instruments, and chanting accompanied these acts, creating a layered sensory experience that nurtured both awareness and devotion. The integration of ritual into daily life ensured that cultural and spiritual principles were lived, not merely observed. The river remained a central thread connecting monuments, knowledge, and daily activity. Boats drifted silently, carrying goods, travelers, and ceremonial objects. Reflections of torchlight and moonlight danced across its surface, illuminating both natural and human-made forms. The Nile's continuity symbolized stability, sustenance, and spiritual presence, anchoring civilization and guiding reflection during the quiet hours of night. As the night deepened, scholars, artisans, and priests engaged in reflection and preparation. Scrolls were copied, objects refined, and rituals rehearsed. Every action contributed to the preservation of knowledge, continuity of practice, and reinforcement of social cohesion. Even in silence, human endeavor persisted, guided by devotion, observation, and respect for both tradition and cosmic order. The grandeur of monuments served as both inspiration and instruction. Pyramids, temples, and obelisks communicated principles of discipline, balance, and creative vision. Observers and participants internalized lessons about human potential, responsibility, and the interplay of ambition with divine and natural forces. Civilization was maintained through these tangible reminders, whose presence anchored society, culture, and spirituality across generations. At the edge of the city, quiet reflection allowed individuals to connect with the enduring presence of history. Walking among ruins or along illuminated streets, citizens could witness the continuity of culture and the careful orchestration of space, ritual, and knowledge. Every gesture, observation, and participation reinforced connection to both the past and the ongoing rhythm of society. The night emphasized the delicate balance between permanence and impermanence. While monuments, inscriptions, and rituals persisted across centuries, daily life was transient, requiring ongoing attention, care, and devotion. The integration of spiritual, cultural, and practical activity ensured that continuity was maintained, bridging the ephemeral and the eternal. Artisans' work carried profound meaning. Statues, reliefs, and ceremonial objects were crafted to reflect spiritual, cultural, and aesthetic principles. Precision in carving, alignment, and decoration ensured that objects conveyed both utility and significance. Even the smallest detail reinforced lessons of balance, devotion, and cultural continuity, reminding observers that every act could contribute to a lasting legacy. Education and apprenticeship sustained knowledge and practice. Young scribes, artisans, and novices learned through observation, participation, and repetition. Families, temples, and workshops created environments where skills, cultural memory, and spiritual awareness could thrive. This continuous transmission of knowledge preserved the civilization's achievements, ensuring that both monumental and domestic practices endured through time.
As night stretched over the Nile and the desert, the monuments of Egypt stood resolute, silent witnesses to the ambitions, beliefs, and daily lives of countless generations. Pyramids, temples, and tombs rose from the sands, their forms precise, their presence commanding, and their purpose enduring. They were testaments to the ingenuity, devotion, and persistence of human hands, guided by observation, faith, and imagination. Even centuries later, these structures spoke without words, telling stories of achievement, continuity, and reverence. Life along the river had always been a rhythm of interdependence. Farmers, artisans, merchants, and priests moved in patterns dictated by both necessity and devotion. The Nile, ever-present and unyielding, provided sustenance, transportation, and inspiration. At night, its gentle currents reflected torchlight, stars, and moonbeams, creating a luminous tapestry that united natural cycles with human endeavor. Travelers and laborers felt the pulse of life in its waters, understanding that continuity depended as much on cooperation and respect as on divine favor. The knowledge of ancient Egypt endured in both monumental and subtle ways. Temples preserved astronomical records, scribes meticulously copied texts, and artisans refined techniques passed down over generations. Every object, every inscription, and every ritual carried fragments of wisdom, insight, and observation. Scholars studying the night sky could see the same constellations noted by priests millennia earlier, connecting human experience across time. The civilization's legacy was not merely in stone and ink, but in the continued understanding of order, balance, and the integration of human and cosmic rhythms. Monuments reflected the integration of art, science, and spirituality. The precise angles of pyramids, the alignment of temples with solstices, and the careful placement of statues demonstrated sophisticated understanding of geometry, engineering, and astronomy. Each architectural choice was imbued with symbolic significance, intended to harmonize the earthly with the celestial, the temporal with the eternal. Standing beneath a pyramid at night, one could sense the intersection of human ambition, cosmic order, and divine presence, a harmony carefully cultivated over centuries. The continuity of culture extended into domestic life. Families maintained altars, performed evening rituals, and told stories that preserved values, morality, and history. Children absorbed lessons not only from adults, but also from the very environment around them. The alignment of monuments, the flow of the Nile, and the positions of stars. Through observation, participation, and reflection, knowledge was transmitted seamlessly across generations, ensuring the survival of cultural identity and spiritual understanding. The tombs of pharaohs and nobility offered insight into the Egyptian view of mortality.
Carefully arranged offerings, inscriptions, and artistic depictions ensured that life continued in the afterlife. Yet the lessons of these tombs extended to the living. They reminded observers that mortality was part of an unbroken cycle, that life, death, and memory were intertwined. The night illuminated these reflections, as shadows of monuments and the soft glow of lamps encouraged contemplation of legacy, responsibility, and the enduring impact of human endeavor. Astronomical observation remained central to Egyptian life, even at night. Priests, scholars, and artisans used the stars to guide rituals, agricultural planning, and architectural alignment. Celestial movements were interpreted as both practical signals and spiritual signs. Every observation reinforced the connection between human activity and cosmic order, illustrating the civilization's understanding that survival, prosperity, and spiritual fulfillment were inseparable from the rhythms of the universe. Even in quieter moments, the city exuded vitality. The sounds of riverboats, distant drums, and soft chants from temples blended with natural nocturnal sounds. The whisper of wind across the desert, the lapping of water against banks, and the rustle of creatures moving under cover of darkness. These layers of sound created a living tapestry, integrating human activity with the environment. The night became a bridge between the tangible and the symbolic, where culture, nature, and devotion intertwined seamlessly. Artisans' work, both grand and subtle, illustrated the profound integration of craft, spirituality, and legacy. Sculptors, painters, and goldsmiths infused their creations with layers of meaning, ensuring that each piece communicated devotion, cultural memory, and technical mastery. Even minor details in tomb reliefs or ceremonial objects carried significance, reinforcing lessons of order, morality, and cosmic alignment. The dedication of human hands ensured that every object, whether monumental or everyday, contributed to the civilization's continuity.
The Nile's reflection of torchlight and stars at night symbolized the interconnection of human life and the universe. Boats drifted silently, carrying supplies, people, and offerings. Observers reflected on the river as both sustenance and spiritual guide. Its continuity mirrored societal rhythm and cultural memory, reinforcing awareness of the balance between human effort, natural forces, and divine influence. Through its flow, individuals felt both humility and participation in an unbroken chain linking past, present, and future. Even small, everyday acts carried significance. Lighting lamps, arranging offerings, reciting prayers, and observing celestial patterns were more than routines. They were expressions of reverence, continuity, and mindfulness. Each action connected individuals to the greater web of society, culture, and cosmic order. The night offered opportunities to reflect, learn, and reinforce values, ensuring that daily life aligned with principles that transcended time. Education remained an ongoing process, rooted in observation and participation. Young scribes copied texts by candlelight, apprentices learned craft in workshops, and children observed rituals with curiosity and reverence. Knowledge was transmitted experientially, blending technical skill, moral understanding, and spiritual insight. This continuity ensured that the essence of civilization, its principles, achievements, and devotion, persisted even as individual generations passed. The enduring legacy of Egypt's civilization was evident not only in monuments, but also in cultural memory. Stories of pharaohs, gods, and heroes survived in inscriptions, oral tradition, and ritual. Observers could trace lessons of governance, morality, artistry, and devotion through the careful preservation of these narratives.
even in the quiet of night, one could sense the ongoing influence of this knowledge, as it shaped understanding, practice, and imagination across time. Music and storytelling reinforced connection, reflection, and memory. Soft chants, lyres, and flutes accompanied ritual, study, and domestic activities. Tales of gods, creation, and human endeavor conveyed ethical lessons, cultural identity, and spiritual guidance. The night provided the setting for these practices to unfold with intimacy and focus, ensuring that learning, reflection, and cultural continuity thrived alongside monumental achievement. Even as the first hints of dawn approached, monuments, river, and city remained alive with silent significance. The pyramids, temples, and tombs bore witness to centuries of human ambition, spiritual devotion, and societal cohesion. The Nile continued its gentle flow, carrying goods, people, and stories. Artisans, priests, and scholars preserved knowledge, refined craft, and prepared for the day ahead. Civilization endured, maintained through observation, participation, and reverence for both the tangible and symbolic dimensions of life. The unbroken legacy of ancient Egypt persisted in the integration of art, science, and devotion. Architecture reflected precision and symbolism. Rituals aligned human activity with cosmic rhythms, and daily practices reinforced morality, continuity, and cultural memory. The night illuminated the harmony between permanence and transience, between ambition and humility, and between human effort and divine order. As the stars faded and dawn's first light touched the desert, the achievements of ancient Egypt remained steadfast. Monuments, knowledge, and practices survived not only in stone and papyrus, but in the very structure of society and culture. Observers could see the culmination of centuries of devotion, reflection, and innovation, a civilization whose lessons continue to inform and inspire even today. In the quiet, contemplative moments before the city fully awoke, the continuity of life, culture, and memory was palpable. Pharaohs, priests, artisans, scribes, and citizens had contributed to a civilization that harmonized human endeavor with cosmic order. The monuments were more than structures. They were repositories of knowledge, devotion, and identity. Every act, no matter how small, contributed to the tapestry of society, ensuring that the story of ancient Egypt continued across generations. Thank you for joining this quiet journey through the mysteries of ancient Egypt. If the stories of pyramids, pharaohs, and timeless monuments inspired you, make sure to like this video, subscribe for more immersive explorations, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Which part of ancient Egypt's nightlife fascinated you most? The monumental tombs, the rituals, or the silent Nile? Let us know, and continue exploring the wonders of history with us.